Hi everyone, welcome, and today we're going to be talking about chicken first aid. Chickens are such an awesome animal, and I'm sure a lot of you have them in your backyard, and you also may know that it's hard to find veterinary care for your chickens. So it kind of leaves it in your hands as far as treating them sometimes, especially if you're in a really rural setting. So we're going to go over a couple of things today that I have in my chicken first aid kit that I found helpful over the past couple of years, and so let's get started. So one of the first things I like to have in a first aid kit for any animal is a towel. I like dark colored towels just so in case there's any blood and grossness, it's a little bit harder to see and it's less jarring visually. That's actually quite helpful if you're doing first aid for a kid. But a towel is really nice to have, especially for a chicken, in case they're going into shock or something. You can wrap them up in it. Helps keep them warm, helps keep their wings so they don't fly away and potentially injure themselves. Also can help dry them off, absorb any water or blood or anything that might be coming from the wound. So towels are good. The other thing I would include in your first aid kit is some kind of cleaning solution. I would recommend betadine. I think that one's a really good one. I would not recommend hydrogen peroxide. I know a lot of people will sometimes use it, but that's pretty harsh on the wound and it actually will kill some of the cells that have already started to try and heal and rebind the skin. So hydrogen peroxide is not ideal. If you're in a pinch and you really need something to clean it, you can get away with it, but again, I would even go towards using distilled or boiled water or clean water as opposed to that. The next thing I like to have in my first aid kit is this awesome product. It's called Banix, and it comes in a nice convenient little spray bottle. They have a bunch of different products, but it's great for animals of all kinds. I use this on my horse. I use this for my dogs. I also use it for the chickens, and it's really nice because it doesn't sting. So they don't kind of freak out when you spray them, because I know everybody's probably had like rubbing alcohol on a cut and it's pretty uncomfortable. So Banix is a really great product. Helped us revive one of our chickens. So I would definitely recommend adding this to your first aid arsenal. The other thing I would recommend having is some kind of triple antibiotic ointment. And this is just a generic brand, but something like Neosporin or really anything that is a triple antibiotic ointment will help. That is great to put once you've cleaned a wound and you need to cover it with something and make sure that it doesn't get any bacteria or infection in it. This is great. You can really go crazy, put it all over, and just make sure with your chickens that you want to get the wound itself and try not to let the feathers get stuck to it. That's the one thing. Dust will stick to the outside of it, but it does offer a little bit of a protective barrier. One of the next great things to have in a first aid kit are gauze squares. Just a bunch of gauze squares. They're sterile. They're incredibly useful for cleaning a wound. Whenever you clean a wound, don't rub. I would just gently dab. Like I said earlier before with the hydrogen peroxide, the healing process usually starts very quickly and all the cells are trying to knit back together to create a new covering essentially and rebuild itself. So you want to make sure that you don't damage that, but also you want to make sure that you clean the wound so that there's no risk of infection. So gauze squares are great for these. You can clean and then just chuck them out, and they're usually sterile, come from a sterile type, and they're not very expensive. So great to add to your first aid arsenal. The next thing I really like to include in my first aid kit are dosing syringes. This is just a basic 12 milliliter syringe. You can get them all different sizes. I find for at home with my dogs and chickens, I don't need anything bigger than this. Obviously for a horse, I would use a bigger one, but this is ideal for chickens. You can even get like a 6 milliliter one. I think that's the size they come in, or even smaller. These are really great if you need to flush out a wound. You can put the water in, it has a little bit of pressure and just kind of squeeze it on there. The other thing it's great for is giving medication. we had a hen, Edna, my Easter egger, who I just adore. I think a cat got her, maybe it was a raccoon. It was late at night, so we don't actually know. But we were able to nurse her back to health by keeping her wounds clean, using Banix, putting a lot of triple antibiotic ointment on her. But I also treated her and gave her an antibiotic, call them SMZs, but I think it's sulfamethoxazole, sulfamethoxazole, something like that. But that is great. It's an antibiotic. It's I give it to my horse. I've given it to the chickens. The tablets that I had came in 50 milligram tablets, so I cut it up into 4 little pieces. It easily dissolves into water, so you can quickly, just a little bit of warm water, mix it together in the syringe, and then gently squirt it into your chicken's mouth. It might be a 2-person job depending on your chicken, because it's not their favorite. Pro tip: when you're squirting anything into your chicken's mouth, make sure you don't just squirt the whole thing in, because that's not how they drink. You want to squirt a little bit in, or put a couple drops on their little bottom beak and let them go like they do when they drink water. So it'll take a little bit of a while, but I would definitely, if you have a chicken that has been infected and you're trying to save it, I would recommend that. The nice thing about SMZs is they're not particularly expensive, and you should be able to easily get them with a prescription for your vet. So that, I would definitely recommend doing the SMZs. Were a lifesaver with Edna. So that's pretty much the basics of my chicken first aid kit. It's pretty simple, but helps in case of an emergency. I also just want to say I am not a vet. I do have lots of experience with treating various different animals, but again, I'm not a vet. So if you want more information, I would consult a vet, especially when you're medicating your animal. But if you're in a pinch and you have the SMZs, they do work. So anyways, please leave any comments of what you include in your chicken first aid kit, and hope you stick around for the next video and let me know more about your chickens. Thanks for joining us today, guys. Hope you learned something.